Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph, 23a of Meseches Megillah, and we are starting 8 lines from the bottom of the page, the second word on the line, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. The rabbis talking a brisa, Hakol Olin Leminyan Shiva. All people can count for the number, for the 7 aliyahs, meaning any type of person getting an aliyah. What do we mean by that? Vafyu Katan, Vafyu Isha. Even a child can be one of the 7 aliyahs, and even a woman can be one of the 7 aliyahs. Aval, Hamr Chacham, but the rabbi said, the sages said, Isha lo tikra batorah. A woman should not read from the Torah, mipnei kavod tzibor, arav, kavod tzibor, honor for the congregation. Doesn't explain itself exactly. It seems maybe it would be a lack of modesty or tznius for a woman to get an aliyah. But strictly speaking, originally they said that, or at least technically, they could have, but the rabbis then the sages enacted that they should not. Ibayilahu. Now they posed the following question. Maftir mahu sheyala leminyan shiva. What about the maftir? Should that count for one of the 7? Again, we said that on Shabbos there are 7 aliyahs, and the question is, the maftir aliyah, does it count as one of the 7? So, Rav Huna of Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. It's a dispute between Rav Huna and Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Chad Amar Ola, one of them says it counts, V'chad Amar Eino Ola, and one of them says it does not count as the 7, it's an additional aliyah, an 8th aliyah, which is what we do. Manda Amar Ola, the one who says it counts, Dehakari, because he read, you're supposed to read, 7 people should read from the Torah, and 7 people did. It counts. Umanda Amar Eino Ola, and the one who says that it doesn't count, Kedeula, that's in accordance with the teaching of Ula, Damar Ula, that Ula said, Mipnei ma hamaftir benavi tarach shikra b'torah tchila. Why, in the first place, does the person who's going to read the Haftorah have to get an aliyah and read from the Torah first? So, there was a certain point in our history where they enacted that we would read from Navi, a chapter from the prophets, as the Haftorah, and but they said that whoever is going to read from the Navi should also read from the Torah first. Why? So Ula explained, Mibnei Kavod Torah. It's out of honor for the Torah, because we don't want somebody to go up and just read from the Navi. He should also read from the Torah. It's proper honor for the Torah. Now that's why he reads from the Torah. And since the Kevan to Mishum Kavod Torah, since he's only reading out of Kavod Torah, it's not like he's reading for the sake of reading Torah by itself, so the Minyana Lo Salk, it doesn't count as one of the 7. Meaning he's not doing it as part of the obligation to have 7, he's just doing it to make sure that he honors the Torah properly and doesn't just read from the Navi. So that doesn't count. And therefore, the second opinion said that the maftir does not count as one of the 7 aliyahs, and it's an additional aliyah. Meisvei. We ask a contradiction from a brisa. The brisa says, "Hamaftir benavi lo yifchos mi'esr me'echad psukim." One who reads Haftorah should not have less than 21 psukim. A Haftorah should be minimally 21 psukim. Kineged shiva shekaru batorah, corresponding to the 7 people who got aliyahs. So 7 people got aliyahs, and minimum of 3 aliyahs per person, 3 verses, 3 psukim per person. So that means minimally a Kriyas Torah on Shabbos has to have at least 21 psukim, and corresponding to that, we say that the Haftorah should have at least 21 psukim. V'im Isa, and if it was true that maftir is a separate aliyah and doesn't count as one of the 7, Esrim Arba Havyan, it should be 24, because really, if maftir doesn't count, then minimally we have 8 aliyahs. And if there's 8 aliyahs, that means there are 24 psukim. So a Haftorah should be 24 psukim. So it seems that this brisa that says that a Haftorah has to be at least 21 psukim is a proof that maftir counts as one of the 7, and there are only 7 total aliyahs, and corresponding to those 7 aliyahs, which are 21 verses at least, we have 21 verses in the Haftorah. Says the Gemara, no. Kivan demishum kavod Torahu kinegdo nami lobai. Since that 8th aliyah is only, as we said before, out of kavod Torah, it's only to give proper honor to the Torah when somebody is reading from Navi, they should also read from Torah. So therefore, it's not part of the count. It's not part of the count. So we don't need a corresponding thing in the Haftorah. And so all we need to correspond to is the 7 main aliyahs, and which is at least 21 psukim. That's why Haftorah only has to be 21 psukim, even if you hold that maftir is a separate aliyah. Maskif la Rava. Rava asked a question on this approach, really on this brisa. Veharei olosechem safu delohavyam esrin v'chad v'karinon. What about the Haftorah from the 7th chapter of Yirmiyah, olosechem safu, which is not 21 psukim, and yet we read it. And this is the Haftorah for Parashas Tzav. And it says it's less than 21 psukim. I did take a quick look. I think that we actually we add on a few other psukim from a little while later to make it up to 21. But on its own, I think it was 18 psukim. So the Gemara asks that this is only, again, I think it's 18 psukim, and we read it. So you see that you don't have to have 21 psukim. The Gemara answers, Shani Hasam Desaluk Inyana. There it's different because it's the end of a topic. If it's the end of a topic, then you don't have to start a new topic. It's the end of like a section in the Navi, so you don't have to start a new topic to get to 21, but ideally, normally, you're supposed to have at least 21. Ask the Gemara, V'heicha de lo salak inyana lo. And if it's not the end of a topic, then you're supposed to keep going. Ve'amar Shmuel bar Abba, but Shmuel bar Abba said, Zimnin sagiyim hava imna kamed Rabbi Yochanan. Many times I was before Rabbi Yochanan, Viki hava karinan, asara psuki, and when he would read 10 psukim, this is from the Torah, right? We said that during the week you're supposed to have 10 psukim. He would read 10 psukim. Amar la nafsikum. He would say, stop. Okay, we did our 10 psukim. We can move on. So again, we're comparing the weekday reading to the Haftorah, but we see that even in the middle of an inyan, in the middle of a topic, Rabbi Yochanan said, stop. We were Yotzei. We did our 10 psukim, and we can stop. So we see that it's not only because you're at the end of a topic that you're allowed to stop. You're allowed to stop anytime. So the Gemara says that was different. Makom sheyesh turgaman shani, a place, a situation where there's a meturgaman, there's a translator. That's different. The Tangi of Tachlifa bar Shmuel, because of Tachlifa bar Shmuel taught go shana al makom she'ein turgaman. That which we say, that I guess you don't stop in the middle of an inyan, you don't stop in the middle of the topic, is only where there's no meturgaman, there's nobody translating. But if you makom sheish turgaman, but if there is a meturgaman posik, then you should stop in the middle, and that's because it takes much longer if you have a meturgaman. He's repeating everything into Aramaic, that he's translating everything and explaining everything, and it takes much longer, and therefore we say it suffices to have on a weekday, 10 psukim, and that's it. You shouldn't go overboard, and people have places to go. But otherwise, if there's no meturgaman and it moves relatively quickly, so then you should finish the inyan, you should finish the topic rather than stop in the middle. Okay, new Mishnah. The Mishnah says, the Mishnah is going to have a list of things that you need a minyan, you need a quorum of 10 men to do. So, the Mishnah says, Ein person al shema. One of the things you can't do without a minyan is pores al shema. What does it mean to be pores al shema? It literally means like to spread out on shema, or like, in this case actually, Rashi says parsing means like to split, to half something. What parsing al shema means, Rashi says, It's like from the language of press, like a portion. You should like a portion out Shema. What does it mean? It means, Rashi says, let's say you have a group of people that come late to shul, and the shul has already said Shema, and I think the idea is that you want to catch up for Shmona Esrei. As long as you have a minyan, one guy can get up, say Kaddish, Baruch Hu, the first bracha of Shema, and then I assume Shema, and then right to Shmona Esrei. So it sounds like they're skipping Psukei de Zimra, and they are also only saying one bracha of Kriya Shema, and it's a way of speeding things up. Okay, so there's a question. It seems that the Mishnah is saying you need a minyan to do this. The question is whether you can use some of the people who are already there, but you need a minyan to be able to be parei sal Shema. Okay, ve'ein overing. It's not something that's commonly done. It is discussed in Shulchan Aruch, but it's not really done. Ve'ein overing lifnei ateva, and you can't have a shliach tzibur. Literally means to pass in front of the box, in front of the to lead the davening. I think it means chazar sashatz, to repeat the Shemona Esrei, maybe other Baruch Hu, Kaddish, those types of things, without a minyan. Ve'eng nosing eskapeim, the kohanim don't raise their hands, meaning you don't do birchas kohanim without a minyan. Ve'eng korin bator, you don't read Torah. You don't lane. Ve'eng maftirim b'navi, and you don't read a haftorah from the Navi. Ve'eng osin mamad umoshav, and you don't do mamad umoshav. What's mamad umoshav? Rashi says that it used to be when they would bring somebody out to be buried, so they would stop and sit on the way 7 times to cry over the dead, and at that point was an opportunity for people to eulogize, and they would do 7 stops. So, like, they would stand up and sit down 7 times, and this was called Maimon Moshe, but it was apparently only to be done with a minyan. The Gemara is going to try to understand why, but it's only done with a minyan. Ve'eng omrim birkas avelim v'tanchumei avelim ubirkas chasanim. You also do not say the bracha for avelim, for mourners. We'll see what that is from the Gemara. V'tanchumei avelim, and we'll see there's a bracha that you say to console the mourners, which the Gemara is also going to touch on. Rashi on the Mishnah says, Tanchumei avelim, you don't console the mourners, refers to the Shura. So the Shura is after the burial, when the people stand in a line and to console the mourners walk through and they say Amakum. So that the Mishnah is saying should not be done with less than a minyan of men. Ubirkas chasanim, that is the bracha for chasanim, for grooms, that's Shava brachos. That needs a minyan. Ve'eng mezamnim b'shem, and you don't do a mezumin with the name of Hashem. So that's referring to saying Elokeinu, the name of Hashem, in the mezumin, Baruch Elokeinu, Shachanu Mishalo, and inserting Elokeinu, you only do that with a minyan. All these things you don't do pachos me'asara. Uvekarkos tisha v'kohen. When it comes to redeeming land that was sanctified to the Beis HaMikdash, that was made hektish, you need a minyan, but it's not just any minyan, you need 9 plus a kohen. You need at least 1 kohen to be there. The Adam kayotze b'ang, and similarly when it seems it's saying redeeming a person from hektish, although the Gemara is going to ask that you can't make a person hektish, so the Gemara will want to know what this means. So too, when for a person, you need 9 Yisraelim and at least 1 Kohen. Okay. Ask the Gemara, Mina Hani Mili. What is the source for this idea that in general, Davar Shebikdusha, matters of holiness, require a minyan, meaning things like Baruch Hu and Kaddish and Chazar Sashatz, the repetition of Shemona Esrei, where do we learn that they need a minyan? So Amar B'chia Bar Abba Amar B'Yochanan de Amar Kra. So B'chia Bar Abba says in the name of Yochanan because the pasuk says V'nikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. And I should be sanctified b'toch, amidst b'nei Yisrael, amidst the children of Israel. What is b'toch? What is considered amidst? How many people does it take to be amidst b'nei Yisrael? So the Gemara says, Kol davar shebekdusha lo yeh pachos me'asar. What that teaches you is v'nikdashti, matters of kedusha, of sanctifying Hashem. It refers to specific ways, but these matters of kedusha, of sanctification, should not be done with less than 10. My mashma, where's that implication? Why is bisoch amidst? Why does that imply that there's 10? To tell you, because Reb Chia taught asya toch, because we can learn a Gezeira Shava to compare the word toch here from a different word toch. Ksiv hacha, here it says, V'nikdashi b'soch b'nei Yisrael, and I should be sanctifying amidst b'nei Yisrael. Uksiv hacha, it says over there, in the context of Korach, it says, Hibadalu mitocha eda, separate from amidst this congregation. How many was that? What is amidst? How many people does it refer to? Well, it causing an eda. The asya eda, and we can learn what an eda is. This congregation, this gathering, from another place where it says eda, which is by the Meraglim, D'chsiv Hasam ad Masai la eda harazos. How long will we have this evil eda, this evil congregation gathering, and how many evil Meraglim spies were there? There were 10, right? There were 12 spies altogether, but Yoshua and Kalev were righteous. There were 10 who sinned. So the Eda Hara Hazos refers to the Meraglim, and there were 10 of them. Malahalan Asara, just like there were 10. Afkan Asara, so too here it means 10. Because Eda, it calls the Meraglim an Eda, which is 10. It says by Korach, Hibadlu mitocha Eda Hazos, separate from amidst this Eda, which is at least 10. And that teaches me that toch is amongst 10. So Nikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael, you should be sanctifying amongst b'nei Yisrael, amidst b'nei Yisrael, is amidst at least 10. That's the source for having 10 for a davar shebekdusha, for a matter of sanctification. Okay, the Mishnah said, Ve'ing osing maimon u'moshe pachos me'asara. You don't do the maimon u'moshe when you are escorting the dead for burial. Like we said, they would stop and sit 7 times. You only do that if you have a minyan. How come? Says the Gemara, Kivan debayu l'meimar. Since it's necessary to say, part of the ritual was to say the following: Imdu yikarim amodu. Stand up, dear ones. Stand up. Shavu yikarim, shavu, sit, dear ones, sit. That was part of the ritual. So, but if there's less than 10, it's not. Orach ha'ara literally means the way of the world. It's not derech eretz. It's not proper. You need a group to say yikarim. Dear ones. The way Rashi says it is, if you even say it for a couple of people, then what have you left for a larger group? Yikarim means dear ones, means a group of dear ones, and so specifically when there's a minyan present, is it appropriate to say this? And since this is the ritual, so therefore you only do the whole ritual when there is a minyan. And you don't say the bracha for avelim, for the mourners, or the bracha for chasanim, for grooms. My birkas avelim, what is the bracha for avelim? Birchas rechava, it's the bracha of the street, or the square. What is that? The Amr Yitzchak, Amr Yochanan. This is talking about a bracha that they would give to the mourners, and actually the mourners would give also a bracha to the consolers at the Sudas Havara, the special meal, the first meal after the burial, which was apparently done in the rechov, in the street, in the square outside. And what was the bracha? The following, Birkas Avelim, the Amar. Actually, the Gemara does not tell us what it is. Rashi tells us that the bracha is the one that's actually, let's do one more line. The Gemara says, "The Amr Yitzchak Amr Yochanan Birkas Avelim Ba'asara." The bracha for Avelim is with 10. For the Morvis is with 10. You need a minyan. Ve'eng Avelim in a minyan, but you can't count the Avelim as part of the minyan. Birkas Chasanim Ba'asara. For Sheva brachas you also need 10. V'chasanim in a minyan, but the chasan can count. The groom can count as part of the minyan. So why does a mourner not count? So Rashi says because he blesses the consolers himself. He says, "Acheinu bal hagemul yishalim lachem gemulchem." He says, "My brothers, the master of reward should reward you for your deeds." Lachem gemulchem atov baruch atah Hashem yishalim hagemul. He repays your reward, and then there's a separate bracha for the Avelim, which is that our brothers, Baal Nechamos, the master of consolation, Yinachem Eschem should console you, Baruch Hashem Menachem Avelim. Ve'eno kol olam yachad, but they're not included all together. So since it's like separate groups, so the Avelim don't count for the minyan for those blessing them. It's not an all-inclusive bracha, separate bracha, so they don't count. But when it comes to chasanim, so the brachos are more general and apply to everyone present, and therefore everybody counts. There's no separation here. Okay. Ve'eng mizamning ala mazon b'shem pachos me'asara, and we don't do a mizumin with Hashem's name, with Elokeinu, with less than a minyan. Why? Since you have to say, "Let us bless our God," to do so with less than a minyan is not proper, is not the way of the world. So again, doesn't really elaborate, doesn't really explain it. One possibility is that it's like when you say Hashem's name, it becomes like a davar shebikdusha, which we said needs a minyan. But that's not what the Gemara says. It could be it's what the Gemara means. Gemara, it sounds more like it's just not proper, like we had before. We had it also before. La barach aretz, not the way of the world. It's not derech eretz. When you are just a few people saying "Let us bless," let us thank Hashem, but to throw in Hashem's name should only be done with a minyan. Okay, it needs further explanation, I think. Okay, v'akarkos tisha v'kohen. So for redeeming land from hektish, if one sanctified their property to the coffers of the Beis Hamikdash, then in order to redeem it for money, you give money to the Beis Hamikdash, you need a minyan, and one of them has to be a kohen. And so too for redeeming a person. So Minani immediately ask the Gemara, what's the source for this idea that you need a minyan when you redeem land from hektish? So Amar Shmuel says, Asar kohanim ksuvim b'parsha. Because if you read through the sections dealing with redeeming hektish, so you'll see that it says the word kohen 10 times. And so you see that you need a minyan. Now you might think you need a minyan of kohanim if it says kohen 10 times. Says the Gemara, no. Chad legufei, one of them is that you need a kohen present. That's the first time it says kohen. Ve'idach, and all the others have a miyut achar miyut. That is an exclusion after an exclusion. And we have a rule, ve'miyut achar miyut ela l'rabos. Whenever you have an exclusion following an exclusion, it's coming to l'rabos, to include more. Which would mean that the first time it says kohen, it's to say you need a kohen there. And then each subsequent time, it's coming to say, it's a miyut achar miyut, it's an exclusion after an exclusion, it's l'rabos to include other people, that after that it could be other people present. The total times it says kohen is 10 times to say you need 10 people, but once it says kohen once, all the other times that it says kohen is miyut achar miyut, it's coming l'rabos, it's coming to include that they could be any other person. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean? Right, so it's like l'rabos tisha Yisraelim echad kohen, that you need nine Yisraelim and one kohen. Ask the Gemara, ve'ema chamisha kohanim v'chamisha Yisraelim. it should be 5 and 5. How so? Because each time it says Kohen, it's a new mention, and the next time is Kamen L'Rabbos. In other words, the first time it says Kohen, so you need to have a Kohen there. Then it says Kohen again, that's Miyot Achar Miyot L'Rabbos, that one can be a Yisrael. But then it says Kohen again. So it's like a start over. So the third one should be a Kohen. Then it says Kohen again, Miyot Achar Miyot, it's an exclusion after exclusion, L'Rabbos, that one could be a Yisrael. So the fourth one could be Yisrael. And then again, the fifth one should be a Kohen, and the sixth one could be a Yisrael. Going on all the way to 10, you end up with 5 and 5. That's what it should be. You should need 5 and 5 according to this logic. Says the Gemara, Kasha, it's a good question. Okay, and then finally, the Mishnah said that not only for redeeming karka, for redeeming land from hektish, do you need a minyan and one to be a Kohen, but also, similarly for a person. Ask the Gemara, Adam mi kadosh, is a person sanctified? Can a person actually become hektish? If you sanctify a person, they don't become hektish. So what does it mean to redeem a person from hektish? So Amar Rabbi Yabo be'omer dami alai. We're talking about where a person says, my value is upon me. So a person can't make themselves hektish, but they can dedicate their own value in money to the Beis HaMikdash. Titania, as we learn in Brisa, ha'omer dami alai. If a person says, my value is upon me to donate to the Beis HaMikdash, shamar so ke'eved, then we evaluate them like they are a slave. That's how we decide somebody's value. What's their value on the slave market? And that's how much they will have to pay to hektish. And that decision, or that, process of paying that money to hektish has to be done. That's like redeeming the person. It's not literally redeeming the person because they don't become hektish, but it's paying off their value. And that should be done in front of a minyan, one of them being a Kohen. How do we know that? Because the Eved iskish l'karkos, because an Eved a slave is compared to land. And we already established that when you redeem land, you need 9 and a Kohen, you need 10 altogether. So too, when you redeem a person, so to speak, their value as an Eved, as a slave, you also need that minyan. Where do we find that an Eved is compared to land? Because it says regarding an Eved, a slave, misnachaltem osam livnechem acharechem, you should cause them to be inherited to your children afterwards as an achuza, as a land, as property. So I think the implication is it's referring to an eved, a slave, and calling it an inheritance or an achuza. That's usually a word that we use for land. It teaches us to compare an eved to karka. This has many applications. Karka land is unique in many ways, and an eved, in most instances, follows along with those halachos, and therefore, similarly, to redeem a person who has dedicated themselves for their value towards the Beis HaMikdash, which is basically saying I'm going to be like an eved to the Beis HaMikdash, that I can be sold. Like I would have to be redeemed at the value of my value as an eved. That redemption would be similar to the redemption of karka, of land, from the property of hektish. Okay.